नमस्कार, मैं मुर्गेंद्र विनोद, आनंदवन भक्त समुदाय वाराणसी से. We have been working as introduced. We have been studying Vedas in the traditional way, and when we saw that the present day scholarship, which basically needs to have known traditional ways, and then if dissatisfied, they could have undone the traditional way of Vedic learning. But what we found was there is a very pathetic state of the real understanding of the Vedic studies, and hence the internal evidences which were actually sufficient to establish most of the debatable issues, which have been, the debates have been going on sort of unendingly and undecidably. For example, everybody has his own speculations, but subjects which do not have evidences, you may speculate, but where the evidences are very strong, there should be no opportunity for a speculative environment where debates simply go on. So we found the situation ripe enough to enter into it and try to see whether, if we bring out the facts, are people ready to debate over it, critically analyze it, and if found correct, are they ready to accept them? So through this medium, I hope we will be able to raise a debate which till now we believe, as I said, is simply ignoring the age-old wisdom which was all prevalent, and probably becoming obscure for us. So now the topic is, as we see, the geography of Saraswati and Aryavarta, and we will be basically geography needs to be to have a period about which we are talking about. So then we are talking of this geography in the epoch of Vedic ritualistic manuals. Now the significance of this title would be clear to those who have already indulged into these studies. We often hear what we say Rigvedic Saraswati. So whenever people start talking about Vedic whatever, then they would start with an assumption that Rigveda is the oldest. So if we want to study whatever Vedic, then we should study the Rigvedic part. And that is a sort of, really, it's called Abhyupagama dosha. If we assume something which is against us, then we are never going to be able to really show what we need to show. So here first we will establish the epoch of Vedic ritualistic manuals through the internal evidence. So that will be our first part of the talk. What has happened to Bharata? So we are looking at the basically problem. Let us make the problem statement. Bharatas lost to foreign invaders, lastly to Europeans. Bharatas is a deliberate usage, and we know a list of the horde of attackers. Now generally it is a consensus that attackers always surpassed Bharatiya technology prevalent at that time, and then they had a superior hand. But last invaders, the Europeans, they did something wonderful, something which was never done before. They dazzled Indian mind, and then what they could do was, the stories of supernatural which were so prevalent in India at that time, then they become all, it become what we call mythology, and then the whole credibility of the system was questioned. So now this is a very important attack, and as we see later on, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So those who had the facts on their side and they attacked the Bharatiya way of thinking, they again succumbed to the same speculative ways. And what they have done is, I am suggesting that their mischief of Aryan invasion, who paid the price? They themselves paid the price. 6 million Jews were killed with a speculative theory which had no real basis. Now, the law of nature, it doesn't leave anybody. So what happens is, nowadays what we see, a further mischief is, which is a very serious mischief going on, and we hope that the kind of solid evidence based, internal evidence based thing that we are proposing would at least deter people from having furthering such speculative ways, which is, I am referring to the genetic theory. The genetic theory, being a computer scientist myself, I have a basically suggestion to Indian scientists working in the same area as to question the presumptions, the tacit assumptions underlying an algorithm which is being run on a very scanty data, and big extrapolated results are being arrived at. Now this is a tragic situation. When you have less of evidence and lot of speculation, you are going to harm the truth. So I suggest that we do it otherwise, where we have lot of evidence, let us disallow speculation. So that is what we are trying to do. What Bharatiya scholars did, when these Aryan invasion theories were again floated in the late 19th century, Swami Dayananda, we see, he talks of Rigveda, he basically comments upon Rigveda and Yajurveda, and he writes Satyartha Prakash, he refutes the suggestions of Aryan invasion, etc. But what he does, he also disowns the Vedic ritualistic manuals, and he himself accepts that they are a late Vedic aberration. Now I will show why this is a very this is a sort of self-destructive step. Lokmanya Tilak, he also wrote Orion, very nice. He showed the internal evidences where the epoch of antiquity of the Vedas could be established. But again, he entered into a speculative world, where he started talking about Rigveda Suktas, and then he brought the home of the Arctic home of Vedics. So that is again, making speculations where actually what you needed was strong evidence-based approach. Then of course we know Yogi Arvinda, he took the Vedic interpretation to mystical heights. Now that is good, but then that doesn't help us in this area at least. And then we see modern scholars like Dr. Subhash Kak and many others, what they are doing is, they are basically believing that these Vedic rituals should not be taken at their face value. They should not be taken in the traditional way, but they should be treated as theatres. And what we will treat them as astronomical labs, which they themselves are not claiming. We will look into astronomical discoveries through some what we call figurative meanings, again making a speculation into the Vedic studies. Now nobody seems to like that Veda hi yajnartham abhipravritta. That is the basic theme. What appears is the modern scholarship is abhorrent of yajna, that is basically the rituals, and hence there is a apathy towards studying the Vedic ritualistic manuals, which is actually a storehouse of evidence upon which all these things could be put to a solid footing. So now what we can say is, we seem to have a wishful thinking approach to the Vedas. One side sees, they want to see everything in Vedas, and the other side wants Vedas are only a superstition of some primitive people. Now this is just a faith, depending upon the faith, they are having this basic bias. Now what are the ordinary Bharatiyas doing, which is a real problem? We have a great apathy for all this. Scholars are doing something, and what the ordinary Bharatiyas do, they keep going to Bhagavad Katha, Tulsi Ramayana, Akhanda Patha and so on. And what they do is, they are feeding Ganesha with milk, and the milk is flowing down the drain. Now this is on one side, the schools are teaching you rationalism, they are teaching you scientific approach to life. On the other side, the Kathakaras are telling you all the supernatural, superhuman stories, and people are very happy about it. And nobody wants to distinguish between the myth and facts. Facts and fiction, they are going hand in hand, and nobody has dared to, sieve them. Textbooks are shouting that Ramayana and Mahabharata are myths with no proof of their existence. And government is declaring that there is no Papa Punya. Especially in the Kushtha Andolana, they have stated this, while they have not defined Papa Punya. Now these are all very dangerous things actually. But then Ultimately, what has happened is we have a world full of high tech. We are users of high tech. We are not leaders of high tech. And then we have some strange belief system where we think that there is a freedom to fiction in the name of religion. They say, Jaki rahi bhavana jaisi, Prabhu Muravidya tina dekhi taisi. Those kind of things, So there is no need of any fact-based things. That is what is being said. Now that's a very unfortunate situation. And scholars are actually trying. Mahabharata, they are, hundreds of efforts are going on. But they just go on. There is no decidability in it. One scholar says something, the other doesn't agree. Now, but is this the same case with epoch of Veda Shakha Pravachana? I say no, it is decidable. That is what I basically invite the scholars to do. And then epigraphy riddle, we see there is a great ray of hope and it is about to be solved, at least. And then there is a definite lead that there was an epoch which is now forgotten. 583 BC was another Shaka era, and this is very important to resolve all the puzzle of the Indian history. The radiocarbon dates 4000 plus BC, they are established, there is no doubt about it anymore. And the gap of history from Harappa to Ashoka, which is one of the most conspicuous things. They are simply assuming that there is nothing in between these two. The archaeologists and historians, and they are getting away with it. Arey, something is wrong with your methods. How can it be that such a whole land, whole tract is simply devoid of human inhabitation? It is simply very stupid, but then that is what is, that is they are selling and we are buying. But it is overcoming. The things are improving. Riddle of Ganga Yamuna being uninhabited in the Harappan times, that is also getting solved. And the modern archaeology with better tools available to them. Till now they have been forced to follow. If Takshashila has been excavated by Marshall, and if he says Kushan coin, if it is found, then it is 3rd century BC. Then if you find some similar coin in Kaushambi, you are forced to say that it is 3rd century BC, regardless of all the circumstantial evidences which point to something like 1700 BC. No, you can't take such a step. But now with radiocarbon facilities available more easily, I think this is going to be solved soon. Of course, Sindhu script is undeciphered yet. But happily, the iconography of Sindhu seals, if time permits, we will show that, has yielded. It has definitely yielded. And the scholars are, of course, welcome to critically analyze this. Now, what Anandban scholars, what we have been doing actually last these 30 years, we have been toiling to comprehend Vedas. We don't want to teach Vedas as to what they should have. We want to know what Vedas have, regardless of any bias. And then we wanted to sieve the sacred literature, facts and fiction. We wanted to separate them and relate physical antiquities with literary references. That has been our task. And what would be the purpose? To derive the picture of Bharata's geography, history and practices. So this has been our task, which it is a self-proclaimed task. We are a sort of, and then these are some of our thumb rules, which scholars can agree, most probably we hope. This is our starting point. People talk of Rigveda. We want, so why we should talk of Rigveda? Why should we play into somebody's speculation? What is our unanimous condition? See, Vedas are not coming through books. We should forget. Vedas have been brought by an unbroken tradition of Guru Shishya oral heritage. It is an oral heritage. And if they are saying something about themselves, how are others having any liberty to say otherwise? When they are saying, we are not studying Rigveda, nobody studies Rigveda. What do we study? We study Shakala Samveda. We don't study Yajurveda. I am a student of Yajurveda myself, but how do I say myself? I am a Taittiriya Shakadhyayi. Where is Yajurveda? There is no Yajurveda. People should understand this. These are fundamentals, but people fail to understand. And you play in the hands of a European saying that Rigveda was composed in 1200 BC. And then he gives a chronology. It makes no sense. at least all these texts which he also has access to, we also have the access to the same text, all of these texts are coming from a single tradition of teaching, originating with the names of the Vedacharyas. Like Taittiriya Samhita, it originates with Tittiri. And Tittiri and Shakal and Kauthum and Ranani all are contemporaries within few generations. So that is the situation, and all of the, who is the pivotal person? The pivot is Krishnadvaipayana Vyasa. Okay, so Krishnadvaipayana Vyasa, and we are not going by hearsay. Okay, I am not referring to Mahabharata as such, but we know that such a strong unanimous tradition is also supported by the secondary evidence of all the Itihasa Purana and Mahabharata, that Krishnadvaipayana Vyasa is also he began a new epoch where the Vedas were studied in a specialized way. Now I will not go in much details, but then you should understand that originally the Vedic Adhyan was in a liquid form, like need-based studies. Like you can understand that physics, when it was taught, let's say in the 19th century, people would take up a particular, let's say somebody wants to study electromagnetism, you would study electromagnetism, right? There is no course of physics. But now when we are teaching physics now, how are we teaching? We will start with a definite way. We will teach mechanics first, and then then we will bring electricity, magnetism. Now what is this tradition? The one followed by NCERT books. Actually this tradition is these are not a unanimous tradition. Russians teach it a different way, but what we are teaching is from Resnick, Halliday, etc. So like that, Krishnadvaipayana as a way of teaching, he divided the Vedic learning into these ways that you can see, and these are the texts which we are now taking as we have an assumption on it that this oral tradition is stronger than even a rock inscription, because a rock inscription found at a single place, it is probably, it is prone to forgery, it is prone to damage. But this oral tradition going along the whole country, whatever is being recited in Maharashtra is also recited in Tamil Nadu. Their local dialects are all different. They don't understand also generally the meaning of the text, but their texts are all unanimous. Okay, so this is a very strong tradition, and this is what we are banking upon as the evidence. And in this, secondary evidence is the Smrutis, the Itihasa Purana and Mahabharata, etc. But they are all open to spurious additions. Any book which is, any text which is dependent upon a manuscript, it is prone for additions. And there is a very curious phenomena of what we call pretension of rishihood. Nowadays we do plagiarism. Others' books we write on our names. We want our name to come up. Here we have a very curious phenomena. We are writing on somebody's name. We don't want to take our own name, and that is a very curious phenomenon. But that has left these Smritis in a very pathetic state. Now the mantra and Brahmana are sacred. That is one of our assumptions. So we do not want to question or doubt them in their own sphere of dharma or brahma. Athato dharma jidnyasa, athato brahma jidnyasa. This is their own turf. In their own turf, they are what we call swayama pramana. There we cannot doubt or question them, but we are not interested in that arena at all, because we are interested in something, as we are basically knowing, we are interested in geographical, which are basically physically verifiable details, and they are found only in the Bhutarthavada. What are our insights? After these preliminaries, because why I am mentioning these preliminaries is, any scholar, anybody who wants to work in this area, if we do not agree on some minimum level, minimum basis, then arguments are futile. I have already done few discussions, and then that is why I implore the scholars to agree on first few fundamentals. And now I come to the real insights which are very important for establishing the epoch of Vedic ritualistic manuals. They are the Agnyadhana, Chaturmasya, Gavamayana, Samvatsar, Satra, and they give a decidable description of the epoch of Veda Shakha, Pravachana. Again, the tool is because of the scientifically predictable phenomena of precession of axis of Earth. Now, second and third, are topics of our next, they are the subjects of our next topics. Saraswat Satra and Darshatva Satra, giving verified description of our geography of Saraswati. And then we have Harappan seals and tablets, their animal motifs, iconography, and how we have been able to relate them to Vedic ritualistic manuals. Now, all this has been done by defying the dogmatic position about the Vedic studies, right? Actually, it is a dogma of not ours. It is a dogma of somebody else, as I was saying. And they have naturally missed the truth. For 90 years, they have been predicting, they have been wanting Harappan ritual in the iconography. It is plainly available to all of them. 3,000 seals and tablets are there. But nobody could find out. In whatever tradition, whatever speculation you are having, they are saying Dravidian, this, that. We say, okay, then come out with a solution if you have. And they have been refusing to see somewhere. By overcoming that refusal, it was a cakewalk to find it. Okay, we'll come in the third section. What are the internal evidences of epoch of Veda Shastra Pravachanam? These are technical issues, and I hope you will be patient to follow them, because ultimately critical analysis needs to be done. People need to verify what I am saying. I don't want anybody to take it for granted. The sentences have been, people say it is very confusing. When I talk to some astronomers, they said, well, Vedas they don't have unambiguous passages. It is all ambiguous, it cannot be decided. But then I welcome them to see whether it is decidable for themselves. Mukhamba etan nakshataranam yat krutikaha, Mukhamba etad rutunam yat vasantaha. You can understand. The first of the rutus is Vasanta, first of the nakshatra is Kritika, and then Mukhamba etat samvatsarasya yat Phalguni Paurnamasi. What is it being said? The first of the samvatsara is Phalgun Paurnamasi. Now, it apparently are these are all three different sentences, but they all have a unanimous epoch to be focused upon. Now, this is a horde of passages. This is not scanty material. As I said in the beginning, where you have scanty evidence, lots of speculation. That's a dangerous situation. Where we have lots of evidences and no speculation, that is what is science. So, this is science. I am not talking about the rituals and their effects. I am talking about something they are saying. This is a passage which is describing it is merely a record of observation. What I am taking it as record of observation, and that too a frozen imprint. If the text would have been in re-edition, recompilation, then this would have been lost. But this is like a fossil imprint. It is just lying there, because nobody has changed the text after Taittiri. After Taittiri, nobody dared to change the text, because that is their sacred text. So what we see the imprint of that period. There is a description of season, there is a description of month. Those who are unable to follow, and in layman's language, what it is having is, it is describing a season and it is describing a lunar month. This is a sure way of deciding its epoch. It cannot go amiss, because once we are able to fix Phalgun Paurnamasi is happening in the beginning of winter. We are not talking about winter solstice. Actually, Vedas don't describe winter solstice. They don't describe vernal equinox, as many of the scholars are assuming. That is speculation. That you are reading from the text. Text is not self-proclaiming. Text is self-proclaiming something which is, they are all welcome to study, and this is not a single passage. In fact, it's a very interesting thing. We have a Tandya Brahman, same subject, a different version with little more details to add. We have Jaiminiya Brahman, and when you see the passages, actually you will wonder as to the way they are having the same description in their own original way. This is all fresh. Remember, Vedas don't have any instruments. All they are describing is a very ordinary, humanly, we don't need any Rishi to see all these lakshanas, because this is meant for human beings to perform something. This is why the stress has to be laid upon. This is a prescriptive text, something which is to be followed by ordinary human beings to perform a ritual, which is done by ordinary physical elements. One of them is time, which is being prescribed here. When to begin Samvatsar Satra, that is the subject. and they are describing, and the resultant is very plain, obvious. This is the Kaushitaki Brahman, the fourth. And you will wonder, people have been knowing these passages. And do you think they are very difficult to interpret? No. They are easy once you understand the rituals. But there is Professor Sen Gupta writing a book in 1947. There is Professor Tilak writing in 1890 about these passages. But they don't want to know the rituals. Now, why such obstinacy? Why don't you want to know the ritual? And once one understands the rituals, it's a simple. You don't need interpretations. People are afraid of interpretation. They say Vedas have multiple interpretations. So how can we figure out that is only what you are saying is correct? So that is what Mimamsa is meant for. Come, discuss the sentences. That is what I am proposing. Let us take it to Supreme Court. Let us take it to Supreme Court. Let us take it to Parliament Committee. Let them ask any scholar. Let them discuss the words. And let us discuss whether these can be all brought to a single meaning or not. And the simple meaning is, this is the scenario this is the epoch of Veda Shakha Pravachana. And I will not go into the discussion, and I will come to the result. What we see is the winter solstice. The result, it is not saying so, but the resultant is the winter solstice is happening around Falgun Purnima. This gives us the upper limit of epoch of Veda Shakha Pravachana, 3940 BCE. And no ambiguity in this. This is precise as far as the science goes. Our of course confidence level depends upon only the amount of precision that the science has to predict, and we are just using it. Then the lower limit of the epoch is winter solstice at Magha Amavasya. It gives us the lower limit as 2860 BCE. No mincing the words. Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa, according to the secondary evidences, we know that he is a contemporary of Bharatvar. So the corollary is Bharat age must have been in between these two, 3940 BCE to 2860 BCE. Inescapable, you cannot escape from such a conclusion. That's an inference, plain. And then we need some other tool to fix up that Bharat age, because we need an year, which such a description cannot give us. So for that we need some more aid. I am suggesting that if we look at this Aihole inscription, in its original, people are speculating, it is not 3735, it was 3135 only, because you have some assumption, because you have presupposition of some Bharat age. You wanted to read Aihole inscription as 3135. Somebody wanted to read 55 Shaka as from 78 AD. Okay? I say, once we assume that 583 BC is the Shaka, and if I put this 3735 as the Bharat age, I have an inescapable conclusion that 3762 BCE is the Bharat age. And it is also secondarily supported by the Aryabhata school. Again, of course, the confidence level in these two things are less. So one has to, scientifically when I talk, I understand that confidence level is less, because Aryabhata school saying 3600 Bharata age is 421 Shaka. If it is the same Shaka, it matches with this. So what I am saying is, you have multiple evidences pointing to the same thing, and there is it should be it is a very strong way of coming at the conclusion that Bharat age is 3762 BCE. But we will not be much bothered, because we are anyways talking about geography, which doesn't change within few hundreds or thousand years very sharply. So we will be interested in further talks on the epoch of Veda Shakha Pravachana. Remember what I am talking about? I will repeat, Veda Shakha Pravachana epoch. I am not talking about composition of Veda. I am not talking about Rigveda or Yajurveda or all the Shakhas in the tradition of Krishna Dvaipayana and after him. All the way up to Yajnavalkya Parampara. All the Shakhas have this epoch of 3940 to 2860. There is not a single instance within this Veda which will be able to be shown to be outside this epoch. It will be, of course, before one can speculate, but after we cannot show authentically. This is just a wise saying, and this is for all of us, that who wish to win must seek truth. Right is might. and might is not necessarily right. So what I say, this is actually my guru's saying. He used to say this, Satyameva Jayate was chosen by whatever Constitution Committee or Nehru or whoever. Probably he used to say that they never understood this sentence. They thought because Europeans have won, they are right, which is a wrong way of looking at the thing. Okay, we want to win, so we must establish the truth. We must understand the truth and follow it.